Hi, ladies and gents, and welcome back to the 2 for 1 podcast.
Where you get two of us for the price of one.
I'm Sarah.
And I'm Becky, and today we're going to talk all things dating apps, from which ones are out there, our experiences, the talking stage, and ghosting.
So, when you singles are signing up for dating sites, one of the most common questions probably is this site right for me? Does it have what I want, and how will I get the best out of it? Well, we've done some research and we've looked into the best and most popular dating sites in the UK. So we're just going to run through those with you and see what's on offer.
So the most popular dating app is, surprise, surprise, Tinder. I've used that. Have you used it, Sarah?
I have been on there, yeah.
Yeah. So it's free to use, and every 4 in 5 pictures are of a dog or with a dog or half naked men. Is that something that would attract you, Sarah?
I mean, it's hard, isn't it? Because I know that the term apparently for people who post pictures with the dog to make themselves appear more attractive is called dog fishing. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
So I suppose there's a certain science behind that if someone poses with a dog and they're not necessarily attractive on their own, then it would make you think, oh, he's got a dog. He's not going to brutally murder me.
Yeah. And if that person is a dog person, then it automatically makes them sort of more attractive, especially if they don't have their own dog. You're like, oh, there's a dog that I can go and walk or play with or whatever.
Yeah, no.
That used to be me.
Yeah, so I feel like people do use that as a tool to enhance the chances of getting swiped. Is it right for yes?
Yeah.
Swiped right. But I think when people post naked torsos, and this, I know you shouldn't judge people because I would never want someone to look at me and judge me. But that's what Tinder is, isn't it? That's literally all you have to go off. So if someone's posting naked torso pics, or you think that they're a bit too into themselves, that does put me off. There is a very definitive line between confident and cocky. And when someone looks like they might spend a bit too much time in looking at themselves, that is a bit of a turn off for me, I have to admit.
Yeah, because photos like that do tell you what you need to know about that person, I think. And the thing with those photos, with the dogs or the half naked bodies, is because so many people do that now, there's sort of no originality to it. So I especially just start looking at the actual person. If they've got a dog picture, I couldn't really care less because everyone's got a dog picture nowadays, whether it's even their dog or not.
Yeah, definitely. So I feel as though Tinder has taken a bit of a bad rap, really, because I think it's under a lot of criticism from people who say that it's very superficial because obviously you get a profile picture and then I think it's 9 pictures that you can add up to, or 12 pictures, something like that anyway. But you just really get the person's name, their age, and a brief profile of them. However, if you in real life met someone and you saw them at a bar or in Tesco or anywhere, if they weren't really your type, you wouldn't approach them and you wouldn't have a conversation with them. So I feel like it takes a bit of a bad rap in that aspect where everyone thinks it's superficial, but that is really reflective of real life.
Yeah. Even if you sort of met somebody through a friend, your first judgment is how they look and whether they're your type or not. Most of the time, before you have any sort of conversation with them, you see what they look like. The only time where you don't is maybe if you did a blind date, but you'd still see them sat at the table or arrive sort of thing before you start talking to them. So you're always going to have a looks judgment of someone before you get to know them at all.
Definitely. And I think, what is it that they say? Is it that you make up your mind about someone within the first 4 seconds or something ridiculous like that? And I think if you don't like someone and then you do like them, it's because you've been forced into a situation with them. I think it's more likely that you would like someone and then get to know them.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, your personality's not very attractive.
Yeah. Because even in when people are friends for a while, I suppose then you'd get to know them and then find them attractive that way. But your initial thing was technically not being attracted to them.
Yeah.
Well, you might have been, but like if you didn't find someone attractive and then got to know them and then found them attractive as a friend after being a friend, then yeah. So I think that's the only way it really would work relationship wise, is if you were friends first, and
Then
I don't really know what to say.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think in this day and age as well, I think people want to connect with someone on a much deeper level than just fancying them, don't they? They want to feel as though like they've got a solid foundation, and that is a friendship. If you have a friendship with someone first and then a relationship comes of that, well, you've sort of got the best of both worlds. You've got a really good friend and then someone that you fancy as well.
Yeah, because it sort of all goes back to like when we were like just here to reproduce the human race sort of thing. Then you try and find like the most attractive person to have the most attractive babies, but like in this day and age you want to find someone who you actually have a deep connection with, who you want to spend the rest of your life with, because like when you're older, looks fade, like personality doesn't.
Definitely.
So the second most popular dating app is Hinge. Now, I've never actually used Hinge. Have you?
No, I wasn't even aware of it until like we mentioned it earlier.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised it's the second most popular. But I have a few friends that live in London, and apparently it's quite big there. So maybe that's why, like population-wise.
Yeah.
But I don't know if this is right, but is this the one where you like walk past people in the street, or you have common interests or common like check-in places?
That would make sense, because apparently this site is best for seeing someone's personality as well as their looks at a first glance and getting to know them that way. So that would make sense in terms of common interests, and in the same area you wouldn't be more likely to like the same things maybe. So that would make sense.
I feel like I might have downloaded it at some point, but up here it's not really great because there's not enough people on it, which is why I think it's popular in London. But I think you have to have your location turned on while using the app. So you have to have the app open. And then when you go to places, it tells you like who's been there.
Oh, right, okay.
So if you're like in a Wetherspoons, then like a couple of hours later you'll be like, oh, someone else was in Wetherspoons as well. Like you share this interest. It's like, oh, it's just the pub. But yeah, right. Things like that. I think that's this one. That might be Happen though. I'm not sure. I don't remember.
There might be some overlap, but that is a really interesting concept. You know, if you're both going to the pub and stuff. The only downside I would say about that though is, what if the pub's like your downtime? Like what if going to the pub is like with your mates is to get away with things that you don't really necessarily want to be running into your partner?
And I think like if you went to the gym or something like that, you might go there with your friends, like you might not necessarily want your partner there. Or to like run into someone that you're chatting to, like sweaty and a bit gross.
Yeah,
I'm not saying you're gross to go to the gym, but
no, I completely understand what you mean. I would also think about as well, for instance, say you're in a gym and you, I don't know, matched or got a common interest with someone and you went on a date with them and the date didn't go very well. I would then not want to go back to that gym.
That's true. Yeah. Like, this isn't really that, but when me and Mikey split up on one of the times, obviously, this isn't obvious, he went to the same gym that I went to and his best friend went as well. So I would sometimes run into him or his best friend in the gym, which I was like, so then I'd start like going at different times, making like, I don't know if it was subconscious or not, but I'd go at times when I knew they wouldn't be there so that I wouldn't run into them, which is kind of ironic now because I'm really good friends with both of them. But yeah, at the time I purposely went at times I knew they wouldn't be there because I didn't want to run into them. So I feel like, especially after a first date, when you don't really know them, it would be a bit awkward to be like, oh, hi.
No, I completely agree. I think it almost fills you with dread, doesn't it? You know, if you've had a really bad day, especially a first date, you literally just want to forget about it and move on. And you
Yeah,
think there's plenty of other things,
yeah,
plenty of other fish in the sea or whatever. The last thing you want to be doing is on the Saturday night, have a really bad date, and the Sunday morning, you just want to go to the gym and work it off. And he's on the treadmill,
yeah,
jogging away. That's the last thing you'd want. I would not be going back to that gym ever again if that was me. So I
yeah,
completely get that.
yeah. Because just because two people go to the same gym doesn't really mean they like share a love of fitness necessarily.
No. There's some people who live and breathe the gym and will literally go every single day because they love it that much, and working out gives them, the endorphin rush that they crave. Personally, I work out and go to the gym because I can eat what I want then. That's
Yeah.
so to me, that doesn't compute the same.
No, you wouldn't want to be with like a work. I was going to say a workoutaholic, but that's definitely not a word.
Like a gym bunny, no, definitely
Yeah.
not. I don't know if that's like the same term for everyone, but yeah, no, that probably would drive me quite insane if I'm being honest.
Yeah. So the third most popular is called Plenty of Fish. Apparently, it's the best site for newcomers who might not be fully sure what they're looking for or what they want. I've used this app. Don't know about you, but I think it's terrible.
Yeah, I've used this app too. Not seriously, but have been on it. And the whole experience for me just was not the best at all. Even the website is not up to like a good standard. It reminds me
Really not.
of like being in like a dingy club at like 4 a.m. and they switch the lights on and you're like, where the hell am I? That's what it reminds me of.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What I found weird about it is they have the swipe feature, which they've obviously copied off Tinder. So you can swipe right for people and whatever. But then also just random people can send you a message. And it's like, what is the point of the swipe feature if anybody can message you? Because I would just then use that as the swipe feature. So I'd look at the message, look at their profile. If I was like, yeah, okay, then I'd message back. And if not, I just didn't reply. But like that's the whole point of why you're supposed to like match with people, so you're mutually agreeing that you like each other.
No, I completely agree. I don't know what you think about this. I don't know if you noticed this feature when you were on it, but when I was on it, you could actually, and this was quite a while ago, bear in mind, you can actually search for people.
Can you?
So I don't know if that feature's been disabled now, but when I was on it, you could actually search for people. And I know on Tinder and other sites like that, you could, if you really wanted to find someone, if you're that desperate, then you can do, like the distance and the age and all that kind of thing so that it narrows it down. And you might stumble across somebody. But I don't know, I just don't like the thought of being on a dating site where someone could actually search your name and you would pop up.
That's really weird.
I think so. Like I said, I don't know if the feature's still on at the moment, but when I used it, I did, and I actually put myself on private so that I could only message other people and other people couldn't message me, because that did make me feel quite uncomfortable.
Yeah. Also, I think they have a criteria on there, so you can fill in like what you want, what you don't want, what you're attracted to, and all that type of thing. Like I think there was like a smoker, non-smoker option, kids, no kids type of thing. But then that doesn't actually filter out any of the people.
Yeah.
Like I don't think even in the swiping bit, because I was like going through that and there'd be people with kids and like smokers, and I'd be like, what?
Yeah, no,
what's the point of me filling in the form?
Definitely. And there was other things as well. So it was like religion, do you do drugs? And do you own a car, I think it was? And then also what profession are you in? And I don't like it when people don't answer the question. Like if you're going to put a question on there, you should have to answer it. Like for instance, I understand that people might not want to know if like you've got a car or not, because they might think, oh, you're only after me for my car. But for me, I don't have a car. So if you live 20 miles away, well, then you're going to have a car. Otherwise, it's going to make things a lot more difficult. Do you see what I mean? So I think if you're going to put a feature on there, you should not have to make people use it, but it's there for a reason, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably the worst one I've used.
Yeah. It's very low budget. I mean, they market themselves. I've just got some information here that says they offer a less prescriptive, low pressure experience that allows you to discover what you are looking for. And that's obviously reflected in like what you said, Becky, about it being for newcomers. However, I don't think it should be as basic as what it is. It shouldn't be,
No.
even though it's low pressure, that shouldn't be reflected in what it actually is. It can be low pressure, but still be a good service.
Yeah. Like, I actually think that Tinder is probably like the least pressure,
Yeah.
the easiest to navigate, and the like best for newcomers to figure out what they're looking for. I know there's not always the features of like, you don't have to fill in a bio. Some people have their names, not their names, their ages hidden and stuff like that. But most of the time, I think it's pretty good with the information you have. So personally, I think Tinder's the easiest to navigate.
Well, I was just going to say, going back to Tinder as well, as like a comparison to this, really, I think Tinder is a lot safer.
Yeah.
So say if you're speaking to someone, you feel uncomfortable and you're like not vibing with them, you just unmatch them and you can block them as well if you want, and that's it.
Yeah.
On Plenty of Fish, I don't think it's as easy. I think you might be able to do that, but it's like that isn't explained as well as what it is on Tinder. On Tinder, they've really covered themselves. And on Tinder, if someone says something to you, I've had this before, and it like pops up with a message like, are you happy with
it? Are you okay with this?
Yeah. So they've really taken their safety and security of their users really into account, which I think is brilliant, because on a dating site, you do need to be careful. You never know who you're speaking to at the end of the day, and that is the reality of it.
Yeah.
They also suggest things to do which Plenty of Fish don't do, like for instance, do a video call before you meet this person, make sure, like I said, it is who you're speaking to, and they give some really useful tips on there for what to do if you are meeting in person. For instance, if you take a friend with you, or let someone know where you are and check in with them regularly. So I think that's really important, which I didn't see much of on Plenty of Fish.
No, Tinder's got quite a good set of like community guidelines, hasn't it? Which is why it flags up like inappropriate messages and things, and you can decide whether you want to have messages like that. But I think they also say as well, don't give any personal information to people. I think they do say don't give your number to people before you've met them, but personally, I think it depends how long you want to speak for before you meet up. But I think speaking on the phone or on text is a little bit more, like, you find out a little bit more about people than on the app.
I know,
that's what I personally find.
No, I completely agree with you. I think as well, I don't know how you feel about this, but if you're out in public, I don't really want someone seeing my screen on Tinder, so I'll just be like, oh, can I take your number?
Yeah.
It's not as, you don't really mind texting people as much. I know you shouldn't really be bothered about that kind of thing in this day and age, but I think that just makes me feel a bit more comfortable, so it might come across a bit better on text because I'm not worried about who's around.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think you can get much information from your phone number.
No.
Apart from that they could potentially just like harass you, but you can block a number or not reply.
Yeah, definitely.
So the fourth most popular and the last one that we're going to talk about is Bumble. Bumble says it's the best dating site for if you don't quite feel comfortable dating in real life yet. It breaks down the rule of who makes the first move, because a girl has to message the guy first. From our personal experiences, the women have to make the first move on the man. I'm not fully sure how it works with like same-sex relationships, and Bumble says the women make the first move, so I'm not sure how they cater for that, but that's how they like market their app, is that the women make the first move. If you are looking for a same-sex relationship, then maybe like look into how that works for you. But from our experience, the women make the first move. Now, I don't know about you, Sarah, but when I was on there, I found that whenever I messaged somebody first, because I had to, so if we matched, then I would, because that's just what you do, surely. But there'd be a lot of people that didn't reply. And I think, I feel like that's how men feel on Tinder. But then it's just like, what was the point of swiping and matching if you're not going to reply? I don't know if that was just me and people didn't want to reply to me, but...
No, I completely agree. I think when you message someone first and they don't message back, it's literally just like, what was the point? I mean, I sometimes wonder, like, was it a mistake? Did you get confused? Like, did you drop your phone and it just swiped? But I think it's sort of a worse kind of rejection in a way when someone doesn't even give you a chance. Like, you've reached out. I think for anyone, no matter how confident you are, it's a big thing to reach out to someone and introduce yourself on a site like that. That could be the first message you've ever sent, for all they know. And for them to not reply, I do think it's quite rude. And like you said, what was the point in matching if you've got no interest in speaking to someone? Why are you on a dating website if you don't want to speak to anyone? Because you will just continue to be single unless you try and speak to someone.
Yeah, I don't understand it. But then I feel like there'd be girls as well who would match and then not reply, or like not start the conversation. And it's like, well, you have to start the conversation. Like, the guy isn't allowed to on the app. So it's like, why did you bother if you're not going to message them?
Definitely. And I mean, I know it says as well that so if it was us that was in the situation, that we would have to make the first move in terms of a video call, which the app does allow you to do. You can make video calls on there, which is quite good. Again, you know, you wouldn't have to give your number out in you know, just to try a video call and check that the person that you're speaking to is actually the same person. But it says on here as well, actually quite interestingly, that a lot of people move on to Hinge after Bumble. So Bumble almost seems to be like a stepping stone. It's sort of like, if you're not really confident, you've not really got much experience of being online and dating, it does seem quite a safe space to be. From our experiences of, you know, messaging men on there, sometimes on Tinder, you know, you can get a bit bombarded, you know, especially if you're not really taking it seriously. You know, say you're having a girls' night and people are grabbing your phone and just clicking yes, then the messages can come in thick and fast. So it is quite nice to have a bit of control.
Yeah.
And reach out to people that you only want to reach out to, and then to remain on the app to have a virtual date. I think they've captured that quite well. Because it's almost like, even on the virtual date, there's no commitment. If this person isn't who you thought they are or what you're looking for, then you don't need to take it any further. You don't even need to give them your number. You can just block them on the app.
That's good. I haven't used Bumble for a while, so I don't know if that's like relatively new, or I mean relatively new as in the last like 3 years, because I haven't used it in then.
Yeah, I feel, I mean, I'm not too sure myself, to be honest, but I think it must be a new feature. If not, I just never got that far.
Neither did I. So did you say that people go from Bumble to Hinge, or from Hinge to Bumble?
Yeah, so a lot of people, it says here in the information that we've got, that a lot of people who might not feel comfortable at first will join Bumble and then will move on to Hinge as a step up. So I don't really understand that, because I thought it might be more Tinder than Hinge.
Yeah.
But like,
also, doesn't the Hinge information say that that's for newbies to figure out what they want? So if you've already done that on Bumble, what's the point?
I know. I mean, maybe because if you're going into Bumble as an absolute beginner, and then Hinge is more like, if you're a bit more comfortable, but still a beginner. So it's like a step up. You're not being thrown in at the deep end at any point. But yeah, it seems like if you were going to go into something, that this would be a safe and a good environment to be in. And I know a few people have had successful relationships off of Bumble. So it does seem like a good app. And again, the security and the features that they have on there seem very good and similar to Tinder, in that they have a good community. And if you're not comfortable, it will be flagged up. And it seems like they do look after the users, which is, really good and what we like to hear.
Yeah.
So if you've ever used a dating site before, you will be fully aware that a lot of messages start with famous opening lines. And, we can get some nice normal ones of, hi, how you doing? But there's always somebody who's trying to stand out from the crowd and be a bit different. However, maybe they're not as different as we'd like to think. So we've got the top 5 best opening lines for dating sites. So Becky, do you want to say the first one and tell us what you think?
So the first one is to send a GIF or a GIF, however you want to say that. Apparently it's a guaranteed icebreaker, which, to be fair, I do think from my experience it is. I usually send one back, but then either the conversation stays in GIF form or it just stops.
Yeah.
So I think the person who makes the first move with it has to be prepared to carry the conversation on normally afterwards. Because it gets a little bit much.
No, I agree. I mean, you can't communicate in GIFs for the rest of your life, can you?
No. Imagine 40 years down the line, you're still just talking in GIFs.
So the next one that we have is, there's something wrong with my phone. It doesn't have your number in it. Now, it's very difficult because I feel as though someone would say this at a bar, not just necessarily over message on a dating app, but I feel like it wouldn't come across as well on a dating app.
No, because I think the quirkiness of it in a bar is that, like, you're not going to see that person again, so they need your number to be able to contact you. Whereas if you're on a dating app, they can just message you on there, like you're already in contact.
Yeah. See, I'd probably just say that. I'd probably just say, but you've got this.
We've got Tinder though. Now the next one is a little bit of a specific reference, and it's, did Ross and Rachel ever break up, or ever really break up? Now, I feel like you'd need to be a Friends fan. I suppose that's a good way to find a common interest, to be fair. But it could spark a little bit of a debate on the first message.
Couldn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
a bit of a heated argument.
It really could. I mean, it's a good way to see if you're on the same page or not, though, isn't it? Like,
that's true. With like morals and things.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on it?
Well, I was going to say, what would you do if someone said that to you?
Oh, if someone, right, okay.
Because are you a Friends fan?
Yeah. See, I can sort of, I can see it from both sides, because Rachel said, you've seen Friends as well? Yeah. I'm just going to rabbit about something. Yeah. Rachel said that they were on a break, so technically Ross didn't do anything wrong, but, although is this what we're talking about? I assume it's this bit that this is talking about. So technically Ross didn't do anything wrong, but I would be as upset as Rachel if I found out what had happened. So it's like, I can sort of see both sides.
I agree. I think my opinion of this is, even if you go on a break, sometimes people hear the word break and they think, right, they're splitting up, they're never getting back together. But sometimes a break can be the best thing that's ever happened for two people, because it gives them the space to realise what they're missing. However, if someone in that time is thinking, I'm really heartbroken, Rachel was obviously missing Ross, but while she was thinking that, he had got on with someone else, that is where I'd feel the same way, I have to say.
Yeah, but I think he also felt that way, didn't he? And he got really drunk and he just wanted to feel a bit of love from someone.
Yeah. Didn't compute that way when she found out. Yeah.
And then she wrote him a letter of 18 pages, front and back.
Yeah.
I love that. But yeah. So yeah, I wouldn't be the best person to ask that, to find out if you're on the same page, to be honest, because I'm just like, well, he didn't do anything wrong, but I'd be annoyed.
Yeah, I'd probably say the same. I'd be a bit like, well, I've got two very different opinions on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, if I was in the situation, he shouldn't have done it. Well, if I was Rachel in the situation, he shouldn't have done it. But if I was Ross in the situation, I understand.
Yeah, and you know what? That's exactly the same as me.
We're so indecisive.
We really are.
Don't have a proper opinion.
I'm dreading asking this one a bit, but the question is, do you have pineapple on your pizza, Becky?
Well, I don't. I made Sarah say this one for a reason.
I'd be unmatching you if you said that.
I'd be unmatching you first. I feel like it's a strange first question, but it's good to find out
It
how
really
much of a
is.
psychopath someone is.
How boring someone is.
The thing is, you can share a pizza and not, like, you could just get half and half, or get your own pizzas. Like, it's not the end of the world if someone doesn't like the same pizza toppings as you.
And I would just like to confirm for the record, my first choice would be pepperoni, but if there was a ham and pineapple pizza that was given to me, I would eat it. I like to
I'd pick the pineapple off and then eat it. What would you say?
No, I just want to like confirm my position on that, because I felt like you were trying to say that was like my first choice, and it's not.
Yeah, but you would eat it. It's a fruit. It doesn't go on pizza.
Yeah, but tomato is technically a fruit, and that's the base.
Well, yeah, but you don't.
Listen, we're going down a rabbit hole.
You don't eat tomatoes like you'd eat pineapple or grapes or something, do you? Well, most people
try
do.
grape pizza tomorrow, and I'll let you know how that goes.
Banana and grape pizza.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So
the last one is, what would you do if you won the lottery? Which I think is quite a good question to ask someone, to find out who they are and what am I trying to say? What their priorities are. So like how they'd spend it, whether they'd spend it all on themselves or whether they'd like buy things for other people.
Definitely.
What are you going to say?
Well, I thought you were going to say, like, what would I spend it on? So I was like, what are you to ask?
Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll ask you that now. So what would you spend the money on, Sarah, if you won the lottery?
I feel like, I don't want to blow my own trumpet, but I feel like I'm quite a generous person. So I feel like I'd give quite a lot of it away. Like, I think I'd give quite a lot to my mum and dad.
Yeah.
So that they could either like move or go on some really nice holidays. They'd probably, to be honest, they'd probably move to like the Lake District or something if I gave them like quite a lot. I'd definitely give some to like my friends and my family. I might like take my friends on holiday, go on like a massive spending spree. I'd love to just like go to like Selfridges and not look at the price tag and just be like, you know, just, even though that sounds quite wasteful, I'd love to just like go and just have like a massive splurge and just not worry about it.
Yeah.
I'd probably like finally move out, get a new house, and I'd probably give quite a bit to charity as well.
Yeah.
Because I think it's always nice to give back, isn't it? I think when nice things happen to you, you should put it back out there and give it to other people. What would you do?
Mine would probably be quite similar. So like I'd buy my parents a house. I'd buy myself a nice house, like a big house. I'd buy my parents like a big house too, not just like you can have a small one. I'd like get myself a nice car, get my parents a nice car, get my friends a nice car if they wanted a car, or potentially a house. It all depends like how much you win. But yeah, like I'd give some to my friends, give some to charity. What else?
Have you heard of that lottery called Set for Life, where you win, but it's like a lump sum? And it's
that
like
sounds incredible.
For like the next
30,000 a month for 30 years. Yeah,
I think that would be amazing because
you get it in installments then.
Yeah, that would be so good.
Yeah, because imagine even the mortgage you could. Oh well, you'd save up for a house pretty soon, but like you could have a massive house with like a massive mortgage and still have loads of money left over in the month to like do whatever you want.
And I think it would, you know, if it was all there, just like in a bank account, just like accessible anytime, I think however million you could get through that, not quickly, but you know what I mean, like within a few years. You hear these horror stories of people winning really young and then like in 2 years they've not got anything left. I think that idea is like so much more sensible.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'd try and not live how I live now. I'd live a nicer life than I live now, but not 30 grand a month. So I'd probably spend like 5 to 10 a month living a lavish lifestyle, but saving 20 grand a month. You're still like set for when you're older, or just like money in the bank for if you needed something. Like if your car broke down and you needed to buy a new one, you've just got a big pot of money to pick out.
Definitely, because also if you're only spending £10,000 a month, well, that's going to last you 3 times longer. I know, only. So that's actually 90 years that you set for life for. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I really want to win that. I don't enter it, but I want to win it.
Maybe
that would be incredible.
Doing it. So now we move on to what happens when you're actually on a dating app and you're speaking to someone. Now, at the start of every relationship, we have something called the talking stage. Now, the talking stage happens when both people acknowledge that there's a romantic interest, and they want to know what their intentions are and how it goes from here. So a lot of problems can arise in the talking stage, mainly because two people are on completely different pages. But sometimes, you know, it can pay off and people can connect over text or message, and this can actually lead to a date. So Becky, do you have any interesting stories or any comments about the talking stage, how either easy or difficult it's been for yourself?
Well, my first thing that came to my head was whenever I try and tell my parents that I'm in the talking stage and they don't understand what that means. Because I feel like times are very different now than they used to be. I've never, okay. I've sort of had both, where like I've talked to someone for a while before meeting, and then I've had others where we talk for a little bit and then we meet quite quick. I think it just depends. I think a lot of it depends on how confident I feel at the time or talking to the person. But there was one time, like one person, I was talking to him for, I want to say like, I was talking to him for about a month before we met up. We met up once and then we carried on talking for another like probably month. Didn't meet up at all. Like I would suggest things and he would like be like, oh yeah, that sounds like a great idea, and then just wouldn't, like it wouldn't turn into anything or whatever. Yeah. And I got to the point where I was just like, what do you want? Yeah. And his excuse was like he wasn't in the right headspace or whatever. And I was just like, well, you could have been honest with me about that ages ago. Not met up with me in the first place. Could have been a lot more clear from the beginning. But anyway, so I kind of distanced myself. We're still like friends on Facebook, I think. But yeah, but the weird thing. So he actually went to high school with Mikey and Mikey's best friend. So that was a fun conversation to breach. But this was like when me and Mikey were friends, so I found it kind of funny to like bring up. But yeah, that was a strange dynamic. That I think that's the weirdest one I've had. Most of the others have just been normal, like a normal progression of events.
That's good.
What about you?
I mean, I think it's important to remember as well that even if you met someone either through a friend or at a bar or whatever it might be, you would still have the talking stage and still have that sort of, you've expressed your romantic interest almost, but you've not sort of followed it through. So I've I've had, a few of these. Some have paid off and we've gone on dates and, they've been successful. I think it's a really good opportunity to get to know, like, if you've got common interests, if you can talk easily. I mean, I don't know about you, but I would never want to date someone seriously who I found it really hard to start a conversation with. My pet is like, hi, how are you? Good, how are you? Like, it's just,
really boring.
It's really boring. But I think this is a really good chance to test things out. So I've had, like yourself, I've had a bit of both. I've had ones that have been really like easy to talk to. I have to say I've never had someone who's like dated an ex. Well,
what does that mean?
Sorry, that I've never had somebody. I have to say I've never had somebody who has known an ex-boyfriend of mine.
Okay.
Well, yeah, okay.
The thing is, the guy I was speaking to, I was going to say his name then, not going to do that. The guy I was speaking to he never told me that he knew the connection.
Right.
I knew the connection, but I don't know if he twigged any connection. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. So I think when you're in the talking stage with someone, obviously it's quite difficult at the moment, and obviously a lot of people are using dating apps at the moment because there's no other means of meeting people really. So I think at the moment it is quite difficult to be in the talking stage with somebody because that could last for another couple of months for all we know. You might not be able to meet up with somebody maybe as quickly as you'd like to. I mean, I remember, we used to speak to somebody on a Monday and you could be out with them by the weekend and it would be that easy, especially because, if you were going on a night out, you could be like, oh, if you're out too, you can come and meet us. And it used to be like that simple.
Yeah.
But now it's not.
None of that at the moment.
No.
You can go for a socially distanced walk.
Definitely. So the information that I've got here is that the talking stage can be anywhere between 2 and 6 months. Because it is important to remember as well that different people take different amounts of time to open up. You could be speaking to somebody and they might not be ready to go on a date later that week, but once you've spent a bit more time speaking to them, and you get to know each other a little bit better, then maybe by the end of the month then they'd be more than happy to go. So I think that's really important to remember.
Yeah, and like with the dating apps bit that we were talking about before, like you have to feel comfortable meeting up with them, so you shouldn't rush meeting them. You can talk for as long as you need to get to know them a little bit before meeting up.
And I think, especially with like a dating app, I think if you've got a friend who's also single and is, maybe willing to take one for the team, maybe like a double date can sometimes be a little bit less stressful and a little bit less pressure. And then also you've got the safety of having someone else there with you. So if you've got a friend that would be willing to do that, I think that's a really good solution. But just going back to what we were saying about speaking for periods of time, I think although at the moment it's really difficult, I think you shouldn't use that as an excuse. So for instance, if someone continually doesn't want to FaceTime or doesn't want to meet up, then it's probably because they see it not going in a romantic direction. So I think that's also important to remember. And if you are that person and you know that the other person has an interest, it's important to not waste anybody's time. If you know that somebody's got an interest in you and you're not interested, then in a nice way you should express that you're not interested.
Yeah, I always think it's important to know that you're on the same page.
Definitely.
And like want the same things, because like even if you can't meet up or like say you're not in the right headspace or whatever, then you could, like, as long as you're on the same page and you know that eventually they are going to want to meet up and like the time has been like well spent talking to them and it's not just like a dead end conversation all the time. I think that's quite important, especially for me. I like to know where I stand with people and like what they want.
Definitely. And I think sometimes on dating apps it can be a little bit harder because, for instance, if you met, somebody through me, for instance, say we'd been out together and I brought people along and you met someone, you could ask me if this behaviour was normal and if this is how they usually acted around people that they liked.
Yeah.
I could maybe, do a bit of investigation work and find out. But on dating apps, it's very hard because you haven't got that same support network who can look into things for you. Maybe push someone in the direction. So you are a little bit more on your own. So I think that is a little bit more difficult, but then it is both of your responsibilities, like you said, Becky, to make sure that you're on the same page, in order to either move things forward in a romantic sense or just not to waste anyone's time.
Yeah, definitely.
So after the talking stage, there's several different avenues that your relationship could progress to. So you could either decide to carry on a connection, whether that's purely sexual or as friends, or you could even go back to even just being strangers. But the important thing to remember is not to set your expectations too high. If you go onto a dating site specifically looking for your dream man, who you're going to be in a relationship with for the rest of your life, that might not be realistic. You might not find that person on there. So I think sometimes it's good to go on and have a look around and to try new things, but not to have your heart set on something. You should try and find the right person, not the right situation. Would you say that was Becky?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, don't settle for less than you want.
No.
Just for the sake of like the first person that shows you some interest. Like, the right person for you is out there. Like, we're waiting for that, obviously. But yeah, I think it's important not to settle for less than you want and less than you deserve.
Definitely. I think, as like cliche as it might sound, like the right person will come along. They will.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that there's like a lid for every pot, whatever the saying is, that you will meet, you will meet someone who is everything that you wanted and probably even more. But if you put yourself into a situation where you just want to meet someone, maybe because it's everyone around you is in relationships, then you're going to attract the wrong type of person most likely. And you don't want that from yourself. So you want to radiate positivity and happiness into the universe, because I think that's what you get back when you put it out there.
Yeah, definitely. So as we were saying before, it, like, at the moment it can be quite difficult to meet up in person, obviously due to the current circumstances. So we've got a list of like 5 fun/unique ways of like meeting up, or not meeting up, having like a virtual first date. So the first one is to have a tour of the Louvre online with a virtual tour guide. Personally, I'm not the biggest art fan, so I'd prefer like the in-person experience of like walking around a museum with someone on a first date rather than doing it online, because I wouldn't necessarily be that interested in the art side of it and more of the experience in person, personally. I don't know about you, Sarah.
No, I agree. Yeah, and I think sometimes if you do something like that, or go to the cinema or something, you walk away like having a nice time but not really knowing anything about that person. Whereas I think a first date's purpose is to like find out a bit more about one another, whereas you speak a bit more about the art or like what's going on or the history, as opposed to actually one another. So that would be my concern. And I also think that that's a little bit maybe too sophisticated for me.
Yeah.
Really,
well, yeah, because I don't have the biggest interest in art, so trying to have a discussion about it would be very difficult. So, and I feel like if they'd planned it, they probably would have an interest in it.
I was just going to say, I think
they'd be trying to talk to you.
I was just about to say I would be more concerned if someone suggested that, because I think we probably don't have a similar interest. Do you know what I mean? I think I'd just be a bit more concerned, like, oh, I don't think we're like compatible.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. I think maybe it'd be a fun date idea to do with your partner if you like already had one.
Yeah.
But I think as a first date, maybe it's not the most. Obviously, if you're into art, then great. But for like us, it wouldn't be the most interesting first date.
No.
But I think it'd be a nice experience with someone that you're already with or already care about.
Yeah.
Because it'd be a bit of fun.
Yeah, I agree. So the next idea that we have for the best virtual first date is play dinner delivery roulette. So this is when you order a takeaway meal for the person that you're going on a date with. So you can do this via Zoom. All you need to do is download either like a Deliveroo or Uber or Just Eat app, and you order a meal to that person's house, and they obviously order one for you. I think this is a really good idea, actually.
I do.
Because it's really interesting. I would love it if like someone ordered me the same thing that I'd ordered them.
Yeah. That's
Like,
true.
how fab would that be?
Yeah. Or like got it down to a T of what you'd want.
What you'd want, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you could do that with anyone, like me and you could do that.
I mean,
we could do it tomorrow for Valentine's Day. Not that
goodness.
this isn't going up on Valentine's Day, but we could.
Yeah, we could. That is such a good idea, actually. I mean, I just think that that's a fab idea. Like,
Yeah.
what a fun first date to do. And imagine, like, in years to come, telling your children, like, but that's what you did on your first date. And it's such a good conversation starter as well, isn't it? Like,
yeah, I was just about to say that. It's like breaks the ice a little bit.
It really does.
Yeah. And even if you were already in a relationship, but in the current circumstances, like can't see each other, that's again a really nice date to have.
It is something really different.
Yeah.
Because
you could watch a film on Zoom as well.
Well, yeah, that's a really good idea. That's our next point. Do you want to talk about that a little bit more?
Oh, is it? Oh, yeah. Yeah, so then the next one is to host a trivia night or a Netflix party. Is this like a quiz type thing, or like watching a film together?
So I think the trivia night one might be like a quiz, which I don't really understand, because if there's only two of you, unless you can do like an online one where it generates questions for you, and then maybe you can both do it. Maybe that's an option. I think the Netflix party one's a good idea, because I don't really like watching things alone. I like to watch with somebody, to have someone to discuss it with. So I think that's quite a nice idea.
Yeah.
And it gives you like a common ground to speak about things. If you're not really confident on speaking to people, it gives you like a basis to speak about things until you get a bit more comfortable with them, a bit more confident, and then obviously you can spread your wings a bit more and speak about whatever you want.
Yeah, definitely. It's again just a like icebreaker conversation starter, because you have a topic to talk about that you've both watched, you both enjoyed, hopefully. And yeah, it's just a good conversation starter.
And again, it shows whether you're compatible or not, because I don't know about you, but I think if you like both like similar things, like if you're in a relationship, then surely you're going to watch like box sets together. Like you want to make sure that like the other person is interested in the same box sets that you're interested in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. The worst thing is when you're trying to pick a film together and you have really different tastes, and it's like, oh, I want to watch a musical. It's like, well, I want to watch a horror, and they're just polar opposites. You both hate the other genre. It's like you just end up settling to like the same category. I mean, I always did, of like comedy, because we both enjoyed that. But then it's like, I want to be able to watch my musicals, and they want to be able to watch their horror films, but I can't stand horror films.
I can't.
They can't stand musicals. And it's like, I don't really want to watch a musical on my own all the time.
I know. I mean, maybe musical horror is something for this year that's going to come out. I mean, you never know. But I'm the same. I hate horror films. I have dated people who love them, and I've literally spent the whole time with like my fingers in my ears and a cushion in front of me, like wishing it was over.
Yeah. I can't even watch them. Like having it on just creeps me out.
I know. And it really makes me tickle when like someone that you're dating is like, don't worry, like I'll protect you. And I'm like, how are you going to protect us from this poltergeist? Like, who do you think you are?
I know. And like, even if there was like a murderous madman running around,
I know. What
if he kills you, what are you going to do to protect me?
Like Vin Diesel's just being body slammed. I don't think you're going to have a chance.
Yeah. Yeah, I have quite an overactive imagination anyway, so I don't need a horror film to feed into my imagination of what bad things are going to happen. So
no, I agree.
Yeah, I can't watch things like that. I think the ghost ones creep me out the most.
Yeah.
Because I'm one of those people where I don't fully believe it, but I don't not believe it.
Yeah.
Like when something moves, I'm like, oh, it's a ghost. But like I've never seen a ghost, I've never experienced like a paranormal thing. Even talking about it now is making me a bit I'm gonna stop.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally get you.
Yeah.
Well, from horror, the next virtual first date idea is watch a stand-up comedian on your YouTube together. So this is kind of similar. This is like watching something, but it's something funny where I think it's really good because you can determine someone's sense of humour on the first date, which I love.
Yeah.
I mean, sense of humour, I don't know about you, but for me, it's like an absolute must.
Yeah, definitely. So if you both enjoy that first one, then the things that are suggested for you, you're most likely to like. You're most likely to both like for the next time. That doesn't make any sense.
No, I get what you mean. So if you both like the first one, whatever suggested would be perfect for the second date because you both like the first one. So why wouldn't you like this one?
Yeah.
No, that's really algorithm. Yeah.
Yeah. So as well as like watching things together, you can also like do things interactively, like we said before with the trivia quiz. If you somehow manage to do that, you could play like an online game. I've heard recently about like an online escape room, which I think would be quite interesting. I don't know if you have to have more people, but that would be quite interesting to do. I think you could learn a lot about someone from that as well. But then obviously there's some more like fun games, just like light-hearted ones. But I think you can learn a lot about someone from like games especially.
There's even things that you can do like online card games, you know, that might not seem too complicated, but it's sort of a distraction. So you could do like a Zoom call and then you could have the online card game up. And, you know, if there's any awkward silence, that's there to just refer to and be like, oh, yeah, it's just a bit of an icebreaker really, isn't it? It just takes some of the pressure off. Because I think sometimes a Zoom call can be more stressful than meeting someone in person for the first time.
Yeah. And a card game is like just a bit of fun, isn't it?
Exactly.
Like Fish or Uno.
Yeah. There's so much you can do.
Yeah.
Okay, so we go from the best outcome of what can happen after the talking stage to probably one of the worst outcomes, the ghosting stage. Now, this is something that everybody dreads on online dating and dating apps. So eHarmony have actually written a whole series on ghosting on their website. Obviously, they don't condone of ghosting. They think it's basically a cop-out to avoid a difficult situation. This can be true. You know, a lot of people like to avoid confrontation, especially when maybe you've only been speaking to someone for a day or two. But they seem to think it may hurt the person's feelings even more than being honest and telling them the truth. Becky, what do you think about this?
I kind of agree. I can't say I've never ghosted anyone, but I have. It's always been very early.
Yeah.
So like nobody's got any sort of investment in the situation. Yeah. Like especially as soon as you've met up, I think it's only right to be honest with the person if you don't want to speak to them anymore. Even if you're in this talking stage of it being a little bit more deep, I don't know if that's the right word, but a little bit more deep, then you sort of starting to form a connection. And I think just like disappearing is not a very good way to solve the situation, because I think it's kind of happened to me before, not fully ghosting, but just like when people change a little bit and you can tell.
Yeah.
And then you just want to know what's gone on, like what's happened, but they just don't tell you. And it's just like, okay, like it's just nice to know and have someone be honest about it. Like it hurts your feelings more to not know.
Yeah.
Than to be told.
I agree.
Yeah. Have you ever ghosted anyone?
I have. I'm so
That's
proud
very
of that.
blunt.
I have.
I have.
I think for me, controlling behaviour is very like a red flag.
Yeah.
So if someone messages me, and I'm not talking like 3 or 4 times in a row, like because someone might say something and then have something more to say, like that's fine, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking like relentless messages when you're not getting a reply, and someone's not taking like the hint, and you feel, I've been in positions before where I've felt as though confronting that situation and telling someone would be far more volatile than just ghosting them and blocking them and not having anything to do with them. So I have done it from that point of view. But on the other hand, I have been honest with people that I felt comfortable with and said, listen, I don't really think it's going anywhere. And I've been honest, and they've respected that, to be fair, in a lot of cases. Obviously, you know, in some cases it hasn't been the nicest, but rejection's never easy, is it? And don't get me wrong, I've been ghosted too. You know, it works both ways. I've had people who I've been messaging to, thought that we had a great connection, and then they've just disappeared off the face of the earth. And I genuinely haven't known whether to call like the police, like what's happened to you. But no, it's always been that they've just not wanted to speak to me, which is absolutely fine. But then on the other hand, I have, you know, had people say to me like, listen, either I've gotten back with my ex-girlfriend or I just don't think we're the right fit. And I have respected that a lot more, in fairness.
Yeah.
Sometimes though, it's just a lot more easier said than done. I think for eHarmony to say that it's like the coward's way out and a bit of a cop-out is, I get it, but it is a little bit harsh because not everybody has the confidence to tell someone, you know. Sometimes you don't want to have to be cruel to be kind, you just want to cut the ties.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's completely different if you've actually met that person. I think if you've met the person and been on a date with them, then you owe them an explanation. But I think if it's just a case of you've messaged them a few times, and you've not really been speaking for that long, then that's a bit different.
Yeah. So was the controlling behaviour that you like ghosted, was that quite early on in talking, or was that like after you'd met a few times?
So probably the most recent one, it wasn't that recently, but the most recent one, we hadn't met, but we'd been speaking for, I'd say, like a month maybe.
Okay.
And he got very kind of like controlling in the sense of, if I was on the phone, on my old phone, messages wouldn't go through. So on WhatsApp, so if I was on the phone speaking to someone, messages wouldn't like mark as like delivered for some reason. And if I was on the phone for say half an hour, I'd come off the phone to like 30 messages, like, where are you, what are you doing? And I just can't live like that.
No. Especially when you've not met someone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not okay even after you have, but it's a bit different, like, when you're into a committed relationship, they might be worried, especially when messages aren't delivering. But when you've not actually met the person, that's a bit much.
Yeah, it's almost like it's not their place to be concerned about, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like you don't have to give them an explanation to what you're doing. You can do what you want.
No. So yeah, that was a bit concerning. And I think, like you said, because it happened, you know, quite early on, and we haven't met each other yet, I was just a bit like, well, if it's this bad now, what's it going to be like if I get into a relationship with this person? So I did. And because it was quite nasty, like, so the first couple of messages, I was on her phone for half an hour, the first couple of messages would be like, hi, what are you doing, where are you? And then it would kind of get like gradually nastier. Yeah, so I think I just thought, in an attempt not to cause too much
yourself more
confrontation, I'm just going to cut this person off. So I think it depends on the person as well. If you feel like you can speak to them and be honest, then be honest. But if you feel like it's going to cause more harm than good for both of you, then I would just leave it alone.
Yeah, I definitely think it depends on the situation. Like with that, I think it would have made things a lot worse if you'd
definitely
tried to confront him about it.
Yeah. And I think it's sad that I think he wanted me to perceive it as, I'm so lucky that someone's so worried about me. And but I think when, like, I would consider myself to be quite an independent person, like, I've never had to worry about someone else worrying about me. That makes sense. Like, that's just a massive red flag to me. Whereas he perceived it as something completely different, which is
I think
worrying.
Yeah, I think there's quite a definitive line between worrying about someone and being overly controlling. Like the line's not thin and it's not blurred, I don't think. Like in that situation, a simple like, well, you'd leave it a while just in case they did get back to you, and then just be like, oh, I'm a little bit worried that like none of my messages have sent, like, are you okay?
Yeah.
And then leave that for a little bit. And then, I don't know, I just feel like 30 messages after a half-hour phone call is a lot. And that definitely goes past the line of worry into control.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. It's if someone is making you feel, also it's like how you feel. If someone's making you feel uncomfortable, regardless of whether that intention is pure or not, then it's not okay. Like from your point of view, if that makes you uncomfortable, then I would just say, don't continue.
Yeah.
If you can't reason with that person, then either, like what I did, I just blocked, unmatched, unfollowed, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you can just get on with your life. You don't need someone who's going to bring that chaos and confusion into your life.
Yeah. I've had that a few times, but it's been even earlier than that.
Really?
So literally, like, I'd say like the second day, like if I didn't reply for like 5 minutes and I'd been on WhatsApp, I'd get another message. And I'm like, when it continues for a while, and I'm like, I've literally only just started talking to you, please calm down. So at that point, I'm just like, red flags everywhere, please go away. Although I didn't say that, I just blocked them. But yeah, people have always seemed to show their true colours to me a lot sooner with that. I think because I don't necessarily reply that quickly anyway. So if people feel like they're getting ignored, then I feel like controlling people step out quicker.
Yeah.
Because they don't like to be ignored.
I mean, maybe if that's something that like anyone's concerned about in the future, then you should just test it out and maybe just leave it a while and see what happens. You know, if you have your suspicions that someone is a bit controlling, and you're a bit dubious of their intentions, then that's something that maybe you can do. You know, you don't have to be available to someone 24/7. Like that isn't normal behavior.
No.
You are allowed to have your own life and you're allowed to be unavailable. You know, I'm sure you have your own commitments and your own friends that you have to reply to. That person shouldn't take priority.
So following on from that, like if you ever get ghosted, obviously it can be quite difficult to deal with sometimes because you sort of feel like abandoned or like that you're not good enough. But I think the thing to consider is that like they're obviously not ready emotionally, especially, to be in that relationship with you. So if anything, you've had sort of a lucky escape in strange terms, for it to have sort of fizzled out when it does. Because the worst thing would be to like get into a serious relationship with someone who isn't ready, and then to have your heart broken a few months down the line instead. So it's better to be ghosted like early on. I mean, if someone is ghosting you a few months into the relationship, that's obviously awful. But again, they obviously weren't ready, and you deserve better.
I mean, eHarmony's got some very similar advice. They say that usually if you've been ghosted after a series of long conversations or dates, it's because that the other person is not emotionally ready. And I think that's really true, and just reflects what you've just said, Becky, because if, you know, someone can't give you the same time and respect that you've given them, then you're really not on the same wavelength, and it really wasn't meant to be.
No.
So my advice would just be not to dwell on it, to put yourself back out there if that's what you want to do. And if you keep being positive in yourself, then you will find someone who will match the same energy and give you the same back as what you put out.
Yeah. So some dating app terminology that you might be interested to know. So the first one is a fluffer. Now, this is a person who prepares people for actual relationships without being in a relationship. So I think
Guilty.
So I think this is someone who like you talk to, you do things with, maybe you go on dates with. But like you never make it official, and then you both sort of like go your separate ways.
Yeah.
And then one or both of those people can get into a relationship with somebody else. And it's just sort of like a time filler, as harsh as that sounds. Now Sarah's admitted that she's that person.
Wait, I'm not the person filling time. I'm like the person that gets binned off and replaced with a new person.
Yeah. I know what you meant. Yeah. People use you.
Yeah. I mean, who could use and abuse this little face?
Oh.
What's the next one?
The next one is data view, where a date feels more like an interview than an actual date. So it's a bit too formal in the questioning. It's not like a casual chat. It's like very awkward, probably, and like small talk.
I mean, if you've seen our Valentine's Day special, if you cast your minds back, you'll remember I had the data view with the pilot who briefed me on airline
quiz.
Yeah.
So the next one is a turbo relationship, which is where your relationship is in overdrive because of the pandemic. Now, this could be that you started dating just before lockdown, the first lockdown, and you had like quite a difficult decision to make in the first lockdown, whether you were going to move in together to spend every minute of the day together, or whether you were going to live separately and never see each other. So I think a lot of people jumped into that very earlier than they would normally, purely because of the pandemic, which, you know, works for some people, doesn't work for other people. But then I think that's a good lesson for later in the relationship, when you know whether you can like live together, spend that much time together. Because if you test it early on and it's not meant to be, then at least you know for later.
Definitely. And also, even if it doesn't work out, you can take that into new relationships and maybe not move in as quickly as you would have done, and maybe just take it a bit more slow and enjoy each other's company a bit more. So even if it doesn't work out, there's still a lesson to be learned there.
Yeah.
So the next terminology that I've got is recycling, and this is when you go back to the same ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend over and over again.
I'm a sucker for that.
I was going to say, do we have
as we went into? Yeah, I've definitely done that a few times.
I mean, I feel like it's only normal to some extent, isn't it? You know, it's familiar. It's what we're what we're used to. In some ways, it's just a comfort.
Yeah.
But at some point, we need to break that cycle.
Yes.
Because it hasn't worked out.
Exactly. That cycle is broken for me.
And then the last terminology that we have is benching. And this is when you don't want to seriously date somebody, but you just keep them around and sort of keep them on the bench, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've never done this.
Sorry.
No, go on. I was going to say I've never done this.
Oh, I was going to say that could tie in kind of with the fluffer person.
Yeah.
So like they could be on the bench and then they fluff you. That sounds weird. In the middle of the relationship. So then you like put them on the bench again when you get to a new relationship, and then like you go back to them for a non-serious relationship for a bit, and it's just like kind of the recycling as well. They all link.
Yeah, they really do. They're all connected. I mean, I think this just sums up our generation, really, doesn't it? Like,
yeah,
everyone's just kept around for everyone's entertainment.
Yeah.
So join us next week for another episode of the 2 for 1 podcast.
Make sure you click the subscribe button down below so you don't miss any of our future episodes, and click the bell icon to be notified whenever we upload a brand new video. If you enjoyed this episode, click the like button and comment down below any of your dating app stories that you might have, or whether you've been ghosted in the past. Thanks for watching.
Bye.